Do you hear anything? I don't hear anything. I genuinely don't actually hear anything. Wait, I don't think this is working. Let's try on you. Huh? And what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another one on the A-Team channel. Today's one is specifically for those of you that want to become a doctor. And I'm going to break it down, what it takes to study medicine, and towards the end, we will run through the medicine interview process, which will be extremely beneficial to those of you that have interviews online coming up this year. So guys, when it comes to us humans, it doesn't matter which period of time you find yourself in, whether it's the caveman pre-civilization era or the great philosophical generations of the Greeks and the Egyptians, or even the strangest times that we are alluded with right now, physicians, aka doctors, are always and have always been seen as probably the most respected profession out there. Me personally, I think it should be teachers that should be at the helm. Every year here at A-Team, I tend to sign off many personal UCAS references for young aspiring people like yourself to make it into the field of medicine. In fact, last year we had 16 of our students that actually got into medical school here in the UK. So it would be fair to say that over the years I've become a little bit acquainted with the whole process, and it's almost like I can distinguish which students have what it takes to cut it and make it into medicine. Let me tell you right off the bat, it's not always the smartest ones. Obviously, you have to be a little bit smart to make it as a doctor, but it's not the only deciding factor to getting into medical school. So what is it that's so elusive about being a doctor? Is it the money? Well, doctors get a decent pay packet, even though most would complain like it's not enough.
Tell them to try living off a teacher's pay packet then.
A typical graduate starts off on about £37,000 and it can climb up steadily and steeply from there on. A GP earns around £58,000 and surgeon's salary can be anything from the mid-70s to six figures and above. And irrespective of that, I don't think the money is the driving factor for why someone chooses to be a doctor. I mean, I have a friend who works in IT and he's out making most GPs out there. But come on, people in IT, well, put it this way, it isn't exactly the sexiest career path out there. And for that reason, they aren't being lauded with the same accolades as that of a doctor. And I'm pretty sure some of you guys have seen doctors here on the YouTube platform expressing how they're making more money from side incomes than they are from practicing medicine.
And my annual salary is round about £38,000 a year. And looking at my payslip, which you will see over here, the hourly rate is about £15.36 an hour. Overall, in this pretty standard week, my active income was $1,389.44, and my total passive income was $4,093.69. So overall, in that week, I made $5,483.13.
So look, if it's not money, then what else drives people to this loony, overstressed career? Well, I think our psychological DNA has a huge part to play in that. Doctors are seen as healers, and from a culture, especially one that I'm from, they can even be viewed and perceived as superheroes. To have the ability to save someone's life is a pretty profound thing. And I think that aspect of responsibility, stress, and power drives a lot of people. The status and the respect that also comes hand in hand with this occupation can also be a determining factor. So look guys, in today's one, I'm going to run through the ins and outs of what it takes to cut it as a medical student. And I've even got one of our former students here from A-Team to share with you guys the tips and top advice on what it actually takes to get into medical school and the whole interview process for university. So if that sounds interesting, then drop this video a big fat thumbs up. And with that, let's get into it. So every year I'll get a bunch of students coming to me and asking, can I still get into medicine with grade 6s? Or I mean, can you predict me A's in my UCAS application? And is it too late to get into medicine? The answer to the latter question is that no, it's not too late. Last year we had a 35-year-old mother of 4 children undertake her A-levels with us, and she always had that desire to go and study medicine in her youth, but the chance just got taken away from her due to life choices. But she has since then got the grades and is looking to commence her medical degree sometime very soon. So also on that note, I know most of you watching this will have a desire to make it into medicine, but truthfully speaking, there is no one way or one rule for everyone. With medicine, yes, the course is quite demanding, and yes, you do need to get high grades, but there's a logical reasoning for that, you know, as you don't want to be hanging on to your dear life with a doctor in front of you that can't spell or has to Google how to resuscitate you. Anyways, look, if you are an aspiring medic, then there are a couple of cool YouTube channels on this platform. Check out Rayhan Hussein's channel. He is a current medical student and vlogs about various aspects of his journey and has many points and advice which I'm sure you guys can find useful and benefit from. And for the younger audience out there, there is this channel which I recently came across, Udoka Finselman. I think that's his name. He's a GCSE student who's aspiring to study medicine in the future. And look, he created his channel during lockdown last year and is absolutely crushing it. So go and check him out as well. Anyway, let's now get into the main reason in terms of why you guys are here. So make sure to take some notes for this as we get into it.
Guys, this is Ikra Hussein, who is a former student with us at A-Team. She previously studied A-level biology, chemistry, and German. So she is a second-year medicine student at the University of Leicester. So yeah, Ikra, take it away.
Hi guys. So like Amin said, I'm a second year med student at Leicester. I come from Birmingham, obviously. I studied with A-Team in year 13. I did chemistry and my A-levels were, like you said, chem, bio and German. And I did do AS maths, but then I dropped that because maths was too hard for me.
Cool. So you're a second year medicine student at Leicester. How's it going this year with the whole COVID situation?
Okay, so the COVID situation has changed everything. But if I start from last year, like how it was supposed to go, I was really enjoying it. We had group work and lectures every day. The structure was really well structured. Dissections like every week. And basically with COVID, that's still happening, but it's all virtual online. It isn't the same, but hopefully, at some point it will go back to normal. But yeah, this year I'm finding the content is way heavier than first year. There's so much more to learn, but I'm just trying to get through it step by step.
How does the content compare to A-level? Because I think we both know that the content is very heavy. So how would you compare what you're doing, within medicine to A-level?
I think to a certain extent, like the A-levels that I did as well, like chemistry I found really hard at A-level and German was like a whole different thing. So in terms of like how hard it is, I would say med in some areas of it isn't as hard as A-levels, but it's just literally the amount of work that we have and the amount that we have to learn. So for example, anatomy, you would say that's like, I would argue that's not necessarily hard, like learning parts of the body and what they do, etc., muscles and like nerves that innervate it. It's not necessarily hard, but there's just so much to learn and you have to be on board with it.
Are there any particular types of modules that you've taken that you find quite difficult? Is there are there any other sort of like, you mentioned anatomy, what other topics do you have? Because I know students that I've mentioned like doing psychology and things like that.
We haven't gone to psychology yet. The way Leicester does it is it's like body systems. So this year I'm currently doing respiratory system, urinary system, reproductive system. So we do it like that. It's all really well structured. And with that, we do the dissection that's like relevant to that part of the body. So I'd say at the moment, what I'm finding most difficult is urinary, and what I'm finding easiest is probably head and neck, anatomy and stuff. I just love anatomy. I do think to a certain extent you find easiest what you enjoy the most because you put the most work into what you enjoy the most.
You mentioned earlier before we started the recording that you really found the whole dissection really enjoyable. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, let's go into this. So dissection, okay, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and also uni-wise, I know not a lot of unis do a Leicester, we do a full cadaver dissection, so we have a full body to dissect. A lot of unis just have pro-sections to dissect. Yeah, dissection is a surreal experience. I think no matter how many people talk to you about it before and try and prepare you for it, I think can actually prepare you for the day that you go down and you're shown those dead bodies. And everyone has a different reaction to it. But I think what you got to remember is if you're going to a uni that does that, you've got to take part. You can't just stand on the sidelines. You won't learn that way because chances are if they're doing a dissection, they're going to test you with a dissection or a pro-section.
These are dead bodies, corpses that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
It's not just one, is it?
No, not for Leicester, because with us we have dissection as a whole year group. So we're taken down in the building and it's a massive room. And like the first time we were taken down, there's like lines and lines of bodies for every group. So like maybe 30 or 40. And they're all covered up, but you can see like the shape of the body. And like when I went down, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. But they were trying to like get us over the initial shock of it. So they wanted to just show us like in 2 seconds. They didn't want to sugarcoat it. They didn't want to wait a while before. So they just made us take off the coverings and look at the body and get used to what we were going to be seeing for the next semester.
Very surreal. Okay, so your exams, how were your exams conducted last year?
So last year, because of the whole COVID thing, everything became like we had marks, so everything became a mark and it didn't really count. So also for the end of the 5 years, you know how there's a point system for medic. First year doesn't count for us in the point system at all. So if someone got like the highest mark last year at the end of the year, in the mark someone got the lowest, it's basically they're starting both fresh this year in terms of point. But we still did have an exam. They tried to keep it as real as possible online. And in semester 1, we had the proper exam just before COVID.
A lot of people have, there's rumors going around that it's very easy to cheat in these exams and so forth. Is that actually the case?
In online exams, no, I wouldn't say. Definitely not for med. Because with cheating, you've got to know what you're looking up to cheat, right? You've got to know. But when you're given a case study with loads of questions and sub questions for those questions, and you've got to delve into the case, you can't exactly put that case into Google and say, what is this? Diagnose this. And I think that's really reflective of being a doctor, because every patient's going to be different. You can't necessarily Google a patient. You've got to get into their history, their examination, and it could be different for everyone.
So you know how prior to medicine, you probably had a sort of vision of what medicine might be or might entail. Has that changed since you've sort of embarked on the course?
It has actually. Not in a pessimistic way, but the way that people built it up for me was, before I got into med, was that the first 2 years are going to be really, really content based and it's going to be really heavy. And that was true to a certain extent, but I was really scared that I was going to lose my sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? But thankfully, I don't know how it is with other unis. I think it's pretty similar, but they try and bring in clinical experience really early. Try and get you into the hospital in first year. That's supposed to be second year too, but obviously with COVID, it's difficult. And we've got a patient that we interact with on a regular basis and stuff. So I'm always being reminded why I'm doing this, so I don't get too bogged down with just content.
Have you decided in terms of what particular line of medicine that you want to go down?
So it's changed from A levels. Obviously, since I started the modules that I'm doing, I'm really enjoying head and neck right now. So I don't know whether I'd want to go down that route. But with the dissection, I found the dissection really interesting, and I wasn't that affected by it as well. So now I'm also thinking along a surgical approach as well. But we'll see. I mean, it's years and years away, so it could change.
No, sounds good. In terms of general uni experience, how much of that social are you able to socialize with others at university? I know probably in the first year you got to meet some people and so forth. And how have people been interacting and so forth?
I mean, last year was really easy because I was in student accommodation. I'd moved away from home, so I was kind of forced to interact with other people as well. This year with COVID, it's a bit different, and I know there's going to be people that are struggling to make friends as well if they've just started in first year. I would just recommend just be on the socials, whatever, if there'll be a group chat or something, just talk to people. Chances are everyone else is feeling nervous about making friends too. Try and still get onto club socials as well. I don't know to what extent they're still doing it, but with me, I found ISOC really helpful, Islamic Society really helpful to make friends there and make med friends there too. But yeah, with the social aspect of med, I would recommend always putting some time aside for it. And I know there's going to be times where you don't want to, because you're going to be so bogged down by work and you're going to be no, I can't do it. I don't I'm going to feel bad for it. I need to get on with my work. But you're always, in the nicest way possible, you're always going to be to a certain extent behind with med. There's just so much content. There's always something that you could be doing. Say you're caught up with your lecture. There's always technically questions you could be doing, practice you could be doing. So there's never going to be a time that you can 100% say I'm free. So you can't go along with this mindset that I have to be caught up before I do a social or something. You have to keep that time aside for yourself, because otherwise you're going to get too bogged down and you're going to go crazy. You need some time for yourself.
So this kind of nicely moves on to the next question. Do people drop out from medicine?
Yeah. So even this year, we've recently had a dropout in my friend's group. He dropped out a month ago. Last year, I think there was the time when most people do drop out is the first few months. So there was a few last year too. I think it's expected, the teachers expect it as well, that some people are going to drop out. I think some people just get into med and their perception of it is so different to what they thought it was going to be, and they just can't handle it basically.
Just kind of off-topic question. You mentioned obviously moving away, living in student housing, etc. and so forth. What's it like, especially as a young Muslim girl, and in your case, the only daughter in the family? What's it like? Is it quite daunting? Do you know? Because I know a lot of parents are very hesitant to send the girls out.
Yeah, definitely. last year was pretty crazy. When I moved, yeah, my parents, obviously they were really scared about it. They was like as scared as me about it, but they still let me make the move, which I'm obviously, alhamdulillah, really grateful for, because I needed that move. I think basically they originally wanted me to go to Birmingham Uni, but I got rejected from Birmingham. So like I had no choice. Like I wanted to do med. It was really difficult last year because I was in student accommodation, and I guess I just lived a really sheltered life. So I just didn't realize how different people could be, and living with them, how different they're going to be. I did have a couple of other Muslim girls in my flat. They weren't as similar to me. There was still a lot, like I had to deal with a lot of drunk people. I just had to when I was coming home.
Again, a very insightful, thing that you wouldn't kind of like you just mentioned earlier, being very sheltered. And I think sometimes we do, people do need a bit of an awakening to kind of see what reality is, because when you get thrown out into the real world, you'll come across drunk patients, all types, do you know what I mean? And you'll have to deal with that because that's part of the formality of being a doctor. Do you know what I mean? You can't treat them any different. Okay, moving on to entry requirements. Now, as we all know, medicine has very high entry requirements to get in. What's the point of having such high, grades to get into medicine? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a reason. I think people really, really do stress about it, but I do think it's not black and white. Obviously, with the schemes and stuff, people can get in with lower grades. But I think that drop, like that they get in, is never huge. Maybe they drop a grade and then they can get in, fair enough. But the grades are there for a reason, because at the end of the day, you're going into a course that is so demanding. And I think people lose sight of that when they're applying, because they're like, I need to get onto the degree. Once I get onto the degree, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
My be happy I got into medicine, I'm going to be a doctor. No, there's 5 years before that. It's 5 years of intense exams before you actually get a job as a doctor. And if you don't get the grades at A level, it's not about like a smart, intelligent thing. It's about a hard-working thing. If you get, when you work hard, you're going to get the grade. And that's the mindset that you need for med. So if you didn't have that mindset and you didn't get the grades, then maybe you won't be able to cope with med. Okay,
talking about your interview experience. Obviously, you had your interview under normal circumstances. So what interview process did you have to undergo through for Leicester University?
So for Leicester, there was an MMI, multiple mini interviews, 8 to 10 stations, I can't fully remember. And they were a mixed bag. So there was some where I would be in the room and the interviewer wouldn't be there. Just have to do some questions, some maths questions, maybe some comprehension, like skill questions, just put in my headphones and like block out the noise and do it by myself. And then there was also the talking stations talking about me. I had to prepare a mind map before for Leicester, like an all about me mind map with my experiences. And they talked about that too. So, and obviously the stations about like the NHS and like medical related stations as well.
What was your favorite station?
Definitely the mind map station. Not just because I like about myself, but it's just, I think that's the most important thing about the interviews, is where you get to show your character and your personality. And I liked how they picked out parts of my mind map that I just didn't expect them to pick out. Obviously, I thought they were going to go for the medical stuff, like my work experience in the hospital, and like all the things that I like had to work so hard to get the experience for as well. Like it's really stressful getting work experience as well.
Yeah.
And they went for other stuff. They went for my German exchange trip. They went for the hobbies that I do at home, not necessarily at school. It was really interesting, actually.
So looking at you as a holistic sort of a character,
Yeah.
How would you advise aspiring medics that are looking to apply for medicine? What should they try and do?
They should definitely add in personality, like as much as they possibly can, because being someone who's applying for med with all these thousands of other people, everyone's going to have the same work experience, because that's a requirement actually, to have that work experience, like 2 weeks or something. So everyone's going to have that. Obviously they need to know you have had that and have that requirement. They need to know other things as well, because they need to know how you're going to like handle med, and if you're going to have a work-life balance, and how you're going to de-stress. Like the questions they asked me weren't necessarily about the instrument that I played in A-levels. Maybe they knew that I wouldn't carry that on, but it was about like the writing that I do in my spare time, and like drawing and reading and stuff, because they want to know how are you actually going to be able to cope as a med student in the future. So I'd say definitely show off your personality.
So if you were, I'm pretty sure you're aware that the interviews being conducted this year is slightly different. It's all online. If you were to talk to a younger version of yourself who's approaching an interview at this stage, what advice would you give yourself?
Firstly, because everything's so different this year, I would say still make sure that you're treating this like a proper interview. Even though it's online, still, dress up really smart, put a bit of makeup on, make yourself look presentable, be punctual, do all these things, because they're still going to be looking at these things, even though it's online. And like the biggest advice that I could give to myself is confidence. Like, even though I wasn't as confident, like I was definitely not as confident as I am now, like during A-level time, just put on the act, because at the end of the day, this is a stranger, like they don't know you. You could be the most confident person in your school. They don't know that. You could be one of those, really, really loud, outgoing people. They literally just don't know. So just put on the act. It's like 5 minutes per station or whatever. Just put it on and do the best you can.
In terms of, so some people might find the online interviews being a bit strange, especially because of the fact that, they don't know the person on the other side. It could seem quite daunting just turning up, putting the computer on, and then the person's just, quizzing you with these questions that you've never had to answer before. How would you say to try and get into the right mind frame to have the best interview possible?
I'd say icebreakers are really important. So don't necessarily, put the call on and then like be really tense and be like ready to be like, questions be shot at you. Try and like be relaxed about it. Ask them how they are, how's the day going and stuff. Like, obviously the interviewer is also a person. They also know that you're nervous. And they probably also feel the same way about like the call as well. They know that students are not going to know what to do with call, because obviously when you're going into an actual interview, you shake their hand, you sit down, it feels more natural. So they know that like it's going to feel different, and they're aware of that. So just be friendly, just make a bit of conversation at the start. There's nothing wrong with that. They can't mark you down for that. Even if they don't give you anything extra, they can't mark you down. But chances are it will make you feel more comfortable. So be helpful for the rest of the interview anyway.
Any last words of advice before we wrap this up?
I want to say firstly, good luck to everyone applying. You've got this. I know it can seem really daunting, and you can pinpoint it so much. It feels like the worst thing in the world, but remember what you're doing it for, and just work hard, honestly. Don't think so much about the grades. Just think about every day, what you're going to do in that day to make that day the most productive day that you can. And if you do that every single day, then you're going to reach your goal.
Thank you, Ikra, for your words. Thank you for joining us. And I hope everyone can benefit from this. All right.
Thank you.
So guys, I hope this one has been useful in some way. We try to load it with as much useful content to help some of you get an insight into what it takes to make it into medicine and becoming a doctor. If this was helpful, if you could drop a thumbs up on this one, as it really does help the channel out, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Ikra for taking part in this. And on that note, my name is Amin, and I will catch up with you another time.
Look what you've done.